So Darren Brown, hang glider, part of the British team. Good morning and welcome to Airsports News.
Good morning, thank you very much, Regan.
You're up in Yorkshire right now?
Yeah, I live in Yorkshire. It's got good access to all the local hills where I can go leap off on my hang glider.
Now, hang gliding, it's a sport, it's an air sport I'm not really familiar with, but it's one I've been fascinated with for years and years. I've been jumping out of planes 30 years. You started hang gliding in 98, you got your license, right?
Yeah, I've passed in 1998 and I haven't looked back since. I've been flying ever since.
Tell me how it came about. How did you decide you wanted to start hang gliding and how did you find out about it? How did it start?
For me, when I started, it was, I'd just split up from my first wife actually, and I had a lot of time but no money. And I always wanted to learn to fly. And I thought, what's the cheapest way? I thought, it's got to be hang gliding. So I looked in the yellow pages, flicked through, there was one hang gliding school. So I rang them up and that was it. Nowadays, of course, if you want to start hang gliding, you go on the internet and find a hang gliding school near you. I mean, in the UK, we've got one down south that's really good called Green Dragons. But there are 2 or 3 hang gliding schools in the UK and abroad.
What was it like that first day when you arrived? How did it progress?
Oh, well, we started off on a beginner slope, and you've got somebody holding the wires of each wing, and you run down the slope, and it's just enough to get off the floor, and you're flying for about 3 or 4 seconds, and the hang glider lifts you off your feet, and it's like, oh my God, I'm flying. It was amazing. I was from that point, I just had to do it. It was fantastic. I loved it.
So from arriving to that first few second flight, how long does that take? I mean, is there a ground school? There must be a ground school.
Qualify, you mean?
Yeah, no, to actually, from arriving on your first day, getting out of the car, to taking that first few second flight, how many hours was that?
Oh, maybe an hour.
No, really? Wow.
Yeah, it's just a case of the setting the hang glider up and doing the briefing, and they get you in the air straight away because they want to give you the feel for it. And you do theory as well. You do more theory later on as you get into it. But initially, it's like, let's get this person in the air and give them a feel for what it's like to hang glide. So it's really quick.
That's incredible. I had no idea it would be like that.
Yeah, and you're not controlling yourself, you're under control by other people who are helping you, but you get the feeling of the flying, and gradually, as you get a little bit more proficient, they release the control and you can take more control.
The thing with air sports is, for anybody that starts into it, there's this crossover, you start off as a member of the public, and you see the people that are competing or that are taking part in the sport, and they seem like superheroes, like completely different than we are. When I remember when I first started jumping out of planes, I thought I was an imposter. You know, I didn't feel like I belonged. And it's that crossover, isn't it? And sometimes all it takes is, you know, one person to be a bit off with you or a bit nasty to make you feel like an outsider. What was it like in your sport at the beginning?
To be honest, my sport is quite, well, it's very niche, isn't it? And it's a fairly small sport compared to other air sports. And it's really welcoming community. I was very surprised when I started doing it. Everywhere you go, people are helping you. They want to know who you are. And when I started doing the competitions, I was nervous about it. Straight away, that they were helping me and they were giving me tips and advice. I was speaking to the top pilots within my first competition. They were telling me what to do. I was like, this is amazing. But really, really friendly community, and people are generally not off with you at all. They just want to help you into the sport.
How was it? Your progression into competition, when did you realise that you could compete? Because I think we start in these sports, we get a taste for flight, we're enjoying it, and then at some point we realise we can compete. When did that come to you?
Well, I never actually thought that I could. I never thought I was good enough, to be honest. And I'd been flying for 12 years with a break. And I went flying with a friend of mine, and he said, you need to come fly in the competition. And I said, well, I'm not good enough. They said, of course you are, it's fun. And so I went along and had a go, and then I realised that I could do it and really enjoyed it. And I have to say, doing the competitions was the best thing I've ever done with my flying. Absolutely love it. It's just the friendliness, the amount you learn, the opportunities that you get, and you find out what can be done. You see some of the top pilots, you see what actually can be done, and then you think, well, I'm going to have a go at that.
Can you explain to people watching about how a competition works? I know it's like gliding, where you've got the tasks that are set on a day, but for anybody from a different sport who wants to know how you compete, tell us all how it works.
Okay, so a hang gliding competition is usually set anywhere from 3 or 4 days up to a week or nearly 2 weeks with the World Championship. And on any given day, they'll depending on whether it's a tour one where you get towed up behind the microlight or whether it's a hill one where you leap off a hill, you go to the start location and the meet director will set a task, and the aim of the competition is to fly around that task, and it's a race around the task. Obviously, initially you've got an issue with everybody taking off. They have what's called a start window, and you usually have a cylinder that you either have to fly out of or fly into after the start time. And then once you've left that cylinder or entered that cylinder, then your time begins for going around the race, and you have a set of waypoints that you have to fly around in order to complete the race and then eventually get to the goal. The skill in it, of course, quite often is actually getting around the course.
Yes.
We've got no power, and we're not as high performance as, say, a sailplane.
Yeah.
It can be a real skill just getting around the course sometimes, especially in the UK.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. With a sailplane, of course, you're going to have a lot more availability with the lift and with the thermals, but you haven't got that kind of performance with the hang glider.
A hang glider can use the thermals as effectively as a sailplane.
Right.
We usually, when we're circling with a sailplane, we're usually circling inside them. So they've got an outside radius and we're going inside through the middle of them.
Yeah.
So we can usually get the stronger part of the thermal. But the reason a sailplane will find it easier is because they've got better performance, they've got a greater range than we have to find the next thermal. And so they lose less height in the process and they're able to fly further.
And what are you using for navigation? What technical equipment have you got with you in competition?
So, me personally, I fly with 2 instruments called a variometer.
Yeah.
What it does is first of all, it beeps when you're going up. So you don't need to look at it. You can use the strength of the beeps to work out how close you are to the core of the thermal to try and center in the thermal and get the strongest part of it. But it's also got a load of other features. So it's got a map on it, shows me where I am. It's got a little arrow that tells me where I need to go next. It's got things like the wind speed that it works out, the drift, all these lots of information, how far I've got to get to the next waypoint. And really importantly, when you're in the competition, the glide angle that I need to get to the goal.
Right.
So when I'm getting close to the goal and that glide angle reduces to a point where I think I can make that, then I don't need a thermal anymore and I'm on a glide to the goal.
When I first got involved commentating with gliders, I was surprised how many glider pilots had a Vario as their ringtone on their phone. Is your ringtone a Vario?
No, it isn't, but I know a lot of hang glider pilots who they are. Exactly right. Yeah.
Do you have any, is there any apps that you use on a smartphone that you can navigate with as well, or not?
Yes, there's. I actually do have an app. It's not on a smartphone, but I've downloaded it onto an e-reading device. So you know these. Well, a lot of people in the UK have bought something called a Kobo and installed this software because you don't get the glare that you'll get on a smartphone. It's black and white like printing, and it's a bigger screen. So I think mine's about that big. I know you can't measure that on here. But I use that for the map, and there's a program called XCSO that I use, and it's a free program that you can download and install on it, and a little bit of soldering installed a GPS to the Kobo as well. So effectively it becomes a Vario for about 30 quid.
Wow.
Depending on how good you are with soldering and doing it yourself, or if you buy one off somebody, it might be more, but it's a lot cheaper. But I just use it for the map. I use it as a backup map. I use my main Vario, which is a Digifly. I use that as my main instrument, and I use the map as the backup on the Kobo.
So how many different wings have you owned since you started?
I started off with a giant typhoon that the person before me, it flew dual on it, so it was huge. That died when it came off the roof of somebody's car. And then I have had 2 stealth gliders, 2 combats, and the glider I've got now. So I think about 5 gliders. And the one I've got now, I've had it for 8 years now, but a couple of years ago I put a new sail on it, so it effectively became a new glider to me.
So when you're out having a fun flight or in competition, a bit like ballooning, you must have to have a crew that collects you after landing.
That depends on whether you're doing a cross-country flight. So if you're doing a competition, certainly you need a crew that's going to collect you. And what we generally do is we club together a number of pilots together, and we'll either get a willing or a pressed wife or girlfriend, or sometimes just people who are really interested in doing it, and they come along and we pay their expenses, who come and collect us. But also, quite often as well, flying in the UK, if you're not going to do a cross country, you fly around the hill or around the area where you start, and you land back near to your car quite often.
Right.
So there's a couple of sites where you can rig next to your car, take off next to your car, and land next to your car.
Wow. Are you using the same sites as paragliders, or do you have different hills?
No, we fly together with paragliders most of the time. And that sometimes does create a rub, because paragliders and hang gliders have got different skill sets, they've got different mindsets, and they've got the different speeds of the hang glider and paraglider, which means that quite often if we're flying with paragliders, we're gaining on them and going at them. And the other issue with hang gliders and paragliders is there's a lot more paragliders than hang gliders. And if it's a light wind day, then the hills can get swamped. For us, for hang gliders, we find the hills swamped and find it difficult to manoeuvre around them. Yeah. But generally speaking, because we fly in slightly faster wind speeds, or we can do, a lot of the time we go, and there are very few or no paragliders because it's too strong wind for them.
Right. Are you involved in coaching, Darren, with new people?
I'm not a qualified coach. That's something that I want to do. But new people, if they come and ask my advice, or I see somebody new on the hill and there's just me and them there, if there's no other coach there, then I will coach them. I'll help them. I'll explain the takeoff. I'll explain the dangers of that particular hill, the landing, and all the other bits that you need to know about. Of course, and I find that really interesting. Actually, it's nice to get people into the sport and encourage them.
Yeah, it's very satisfying, isn't it, when you can, get somebody like that and make sure they come back next week. That's the thing, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And they come to the hill, they'll go away with my phone number, and we'll go flying together. Because absolutely want to encourage more people into the sport and into competitions, because the competitions really is the place where you meet a lot more people and you learn so fast. And people think they've got to be good at it to actually go into the competition. I thought I'm not good enough to do a competition. But when you get there, you realise you don't have to be particularly good. You've got to be qualified to a certain level, yes, to be able to enter a competition. But you don't have to be particularly good at the cross country, because you're going to learn it there in the competition.
What's happened these last few months with the virus, with the pandemic? It would have put the brakes on everything.
Oh, it's been terrible. Right now, I'm supposed to be in Italy in the European Championships, which has obviously been postponed. We've had the Italian Championships, which were postponed, the British Nationals, which actually I was organising, but we've had to cancel that this year, purely because of the quarantine issues. Yeah. So a lot of hang gliding championships have either been postponed or cancelled. So the next one's coming up. The Italians have reset their championship. They're running, I think, a shorter one in August, and I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that I'll be in that. I've put my name down, depending on where we are with the quarantine. There's another one running in Spain, I think, called the Azure Open, and in the UK, we're hoping to run our whilst 2 of our British Open series have been cancelled, we're hoping to put a 3rd one on, possibly make it a little bit longer, hopefully towards the back end of August. So again, fingers crossed for that, and that the UK weather helps us out.
Where would that be? Where would you be for that one?
I think that they're looking at the Yorkshire Dales for that. I'm not certain, but I'm pretty sure it's the Yorkshire Dales, and there's some really nice flying sites in the Yorkshire Dales, centred around a village called Hawes in North Yorkshire. So it's a very nice place to fly, and some really good potential for going long distance cross country as well.
I was watching your YouTube video yesterday. The one, was it your first flight back after the lockdown? Were you doing a cross country with your friend, trying to get 75 miles to his house?
No, only 75k, and I only managed 35.
75k, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't get very far on that one, but it was a great flight. Really enjoyed it. It was after not having flown for a while, and just to get up high, and that whole flight. When you in the UK, once you leave the hill, when you get a certain distance behind it, you're not coming back,
right?
Because of the wind strength. So when you leave that hill, it's always a difficult decision when to go, when to say, right, I'm going to leave now, I'm going to go with this thermal.
Yeah.
So you want to have a thermal that you think is going to take you all the way to the cloud. And I did that, and I got in the thermal, and I left. There's a hill called Eam Edge. I left the hill, and then the thermal died, and I couldn't get back. And I was like, oh no, I'm going to be landing. I was only like a mile away. I'm going to be landing already. But fortunately, I found another one near a place called Stanage Edge, and I got back up again, up to not quite to the cloud, but that whole flight I was low. In a cross country, it's nice to have 5,000 or 6,000 feet height.
Yes.
And I don't think I got much above 3,000 on that one. Because that height obviously gives you the range, it gives you the distance that you can glide, so you have to find another one.
I was watching another video of yours. You were up at 10,000 feet. What's your maximum you've been at?
12,000. I haven't been much above 12,000 feet. And of course, at that height, you're supposed to have oxygen, I think. But I've been up to that height a couple of times, and it hasn't really caused me any issues. The most memorable one of those was in the World Championships last year, and we took off in Italy. We took off around about 5,000 or 6,000 feet height. That was the takeoff height. So we had to do a fast one because the air's thinner, and we had a ceiling of just below 10,000 feet in Italy, and then we flew into Austria, and there the ceiling went up to 14,000 feet, and it was amazing. We flew right over the top of the mountains there, and there's some fantastic scenery. Really enjoyed that flight. I actually got disqualified because I made a navigation error and breached some airspace on that particular one, but the flight was amazing, and that just made it for me. It was brilliant.
So, of course, in competition, you've got your airspace corridors you've got to stay within.
Absolutely, and they're very, very strict. So the way it works is there's airspace that we are allowed to fly in, there's airspace that you're not allowed to fly in, and we have that marked on our maps and programmed into our Vario. So my Vario will beep at me and tell me when I'm getting close.
Yeah.
And I mean, on that particular occasion, I hadn't programmed it in properly, so it never beeped, which was why I missed it. But they have a window, and as you get close to the airspace, if that's the airspace, as you get close to it, your points start going down. And as soon as you hit it, you get to 0 points. So you don't have to even get into the airspace, just get near to it, start losing your points, which is a really good system because it prevents people from going anywhere near that airspace.
Yeah.
Of course, we don't want to cause any danger, and there's also the reputation of hang gliding to think about.
Yes, exactly. Tell me about getting into the British team. How did that come about?
Oh, well, my first time in the British team was in 2018 in the European Championships. And what happens is every year the British competition panel have a meeting where they decide various things, and amongst the things that they decide is who's going to be in the team for the following year's either World Championship or European Championship, because they alternate. 1 year it's Worlds, next year it's European. And they decide that partly on the points that people have amassed over the previous 12 months in their competitions. So the top 2 or 3 pilots will automatically get through based on those points. And then the next 2 or 3 pilots, they will decide based on a more subjective analysis of the merits of those particular pilots. And you might get somebody who's up and coming, and we've done this before, where somebody was up and coming and really good, hadn't got all those points, but was showing real talent and was selected on that basis. So that enables a more mixed team, really. And so the way it works is I put my application in and said, please let me on the team, and I explained why I should be on the team, and luckily I was selected. That was the Europeans, and then again selected last year for the World Championships, which was amazing. And this year I was selected for the Europeans again, but of course they've been postponed.
Yeah.
So who knows what's going to happen next year? Next year is the World Championships, and there's obviously a team to select for that. We'll see what happens.
Good luck with that. Good luck with that. So unlike a lot of air sports, I'm just thinking about the costs involved. Skydiving, flying, anything which uses an engine, you're paying a lot of money every week, every weekend to go and take part. In hang gliding, once you've got your equipment, it's virtually free, isn't it?
It's not quite free, no, because we have to pay for the British Hang Gliding and Paragliding Association, so that's £130 a year,
Yeah.
A lot. There's also, really importantly, insurance.
Yes.
When we do these competitions abroad, we have to be insured. But again, it's a few £100s. And the other costs involved really are things like your travel costs, maintenance of the equipment. But yeah, compared to other air sports, it is dirt cheap. Once you get into it and you've got your equipment, you're probably going to replace your wires on your hang glider, your side wires on your hang glider every year. That's going to cost you £150, something like that.
Yeah.
It's not an expensive hobby in those terms. Just getting the initial equipment and learning is the biggest expense.
Yeah. With skydiving, to buy yourself brand new equipment, all brand new from the manufacturers, you're probably talking about £7,000. And when you start into the sport to get your first second-hand gear, people pay between £1,500, £2,000 for their first gear. What about in hang gliding prices? For your first stuff, and say, like, if you bought your first second-hand wing, what kind of money would you be expecting to spend?
It's fairly similar, I would say. I think to get a decent second-hand wing as your first wing, you're probably looking at around about £1,500 if you went second-hand. Maybe £300 or £400 for a harness. You can pick up a helmet for £100. You don't really need a Vario to start off with. You can fly without one. I reckon you can get all the gear you need, probably for around about £2,000 to start off with. And to get something decent, that's good condition. And then once you've got that, you build on it, don't you? You build over the years. To get a top class competition wing, you're looking at about £10,000 now to have one built for you. So I want that one, I want those colours, I want that size, I want these bits on it. Probably around about £10,000 for the wing. And that's you win the World Championships on that though. You couldn't get a motorbike for that, could you?
It's true, yeah. Tell me about the progression system, Darren, for the first time where you get that little run down the hill, a trainer hill, you get your first little flight. Is there a set series of progression to go through?
Yes, there is. So to be able to fly on your own, first of all, what you need to do is to get the elementary pilot's license or elementary pilot certificate. And what that basically says, if when you pass that, is that you are safe to take off, fly down the hill and land in a straight line. Right. That's about maybe putting some gentle turns on the way. So it's just very, very elementary. To be able to actually go flying on your own, the next stage is what we call the club pilot certificate. And in order to be able to do that, you have to demonstrate that you can take off and soar a hill, and be able to land back on top of the hill. And some of the bits, like I think you have to do some gentle stalls, that sort of thing. So once you've got your club pilot certificate, then you're actually able to go flying on your own on the hills, and qualified to do that. Although you would be advised not to do it on your own, but to go with other people who are going to mentor you and they're going to coach you on those hills. To start flying in competition, I forgot what the next level is actually. Is it advanced? I think the next level might be advanced pilot. And to fly in the competitions, you need that before you can start going cross country, because you've got the navigation issue. You don't want to start flying into airspace that you're not allowed to go into.
Yeah.
And you've also got the issue with, once you go cross country, you are selecting a landing field. Instead of taking off on this hill and saying, right, well, I'm going to land there because that's the designated landing field here, and the farmer's all right with it, and we know that it's clear of obstructions and it's nice smooth airflow. Instead of that, you're flying cross country, you're thinking, where am I going to land? And you might have to land unexpectedly, and so you've got to have that in mind all the time and be selecting landing fields as you're doing your flight.
Have you met any angry farmers? I know I have in skydiving.
No, to be honest. Actually, no, yeah, once in Spain, was it Spain? Yeah, in Spain we had a farmer who, one of our pilots, we were flying powered, so I had a doodlebug unit on the hang glider and used to fly seated with the legs stuck out the front, and we hit some bad weather and somebody decided to land in this field and it had some crop in it. And he must have flattened an area of maybe 10 square metres, a very small area of crop. And the farmer came along and he was very angry, and he demanded €50 off him.
How much? 50?
50, yeah. For this tiny little area of grass. And he paid up because he was scared of him, but we got the money back in the end. We were friends with a local and brought the local police along, and the farmer was all right with it. It was just at the initial time. But no, I've never met any angry farmers personally. I remember my first cross-country flight. It was a competition within my first year, and I flew in Northern Ireland, a place called Limavady, and I flew 20 miles and I was over the moon. And I landed in this farmer's field, and then went to find the farmer and tell him that I'd landed in his field. And I said, I'm really sorry I landed in your field. He says, oh, that's all right. He says, you can take off again if you like.
Brilliant.
Really nice, and maybe a cup of tea.
Yeah. So you're on the hill.
Yep.
You're learning how to fly the wing. It's weight transference, I imagine. Yes.
Yeah.
It's all about the weight transfer. So there's two parts to it. You need to learn how to fly the equipment, but then, like in all air sports, you need to learn about weather conditions.
Oh yes.
And that's something just to experience, I would imagine.
Well, you actually learn about the weather conditions as part of your lessons anyway, because you need to learn, for example, about you're not going to take off with the wind above a certain speed.
Right. What is the limits? What have you got?
The highest I would be comfortable taking off in is around about 30 miles an hour on the hill.
Right. And would that matter any direction? Into wind, downwind, crosswind?
The direction needs to be coming onto the hill.
Yeah.
I could maybe take off with it. The further off the hill the wind is, in terms of the angle,
yeah,
the less likely you are to stay up, because instead of going up and over the hill,
yeah,
the wind's going to go around it.
Yes.
So even if you can take off, you don't necessarily want to take off with the wind off the hill.
Yeah.
And it's really a judgment thing, dependent on the pilot and their experience, as to how far off the hill you're going to accept the wind being, and also factored into that is the strength of that wind. Because if it's really strong and it's off the hill, then you're probably not going to take off, because
you're going to be straight over, aren't you?
Position right from the outset. But if it's really light and crosswind, and you're just going to be, say you're abroad and you're somewhere where you're just going to be using a thermal, then you may well do it and counter that crosswind as you're doing your takeoff run. But for a beginner, when they first start, ideally you want the wind smack on the hill, coming straight at it, or only a few degrees off. But again, people who are with them would explain about that. So the wind's a really important factor. Also looking ahead at what's coming cloud-wise.
Yes.
If there's a storm coming and it ain't taking off, is it raining? So you do learn a lot of the weather stuff during the initial lessons, but then of course it really picks up when you start going out flying regularly and you experience it and you start talking to people who know all about the weather and understand it.
And I suppose you must get situations like you do in all air sports of lower experienced people getting ready to go, and you can look at them and think, this is not a good moment. How do you deal with that? You just let them go, or do you try and advise them to stand down?
I don't want them to kill themselves. I'm going to tell them.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I've had that a number of times where you see somebody getting ready and you think, what are you doing? And you might say to them, do you know what you're doing? Because you don't necessarily know them. Do you know what you're doing? And do you know what you're getting into here? And if they say, oh yeah, I know exactly what I'm doing, I'm off. Well, that's their choice then.
Yes.
But if you know that person's inexperienced, you're going to be strongly advising them, don't do it.
Yeah.
When I first started my lessons, a guy turned up on the hill where it was only 50 feet from the top to bottom, and he had bought a hang glider from eBay and he'd made himself a harness out of rope and tied himself onto this hang glider. He'd never ever flown it. Yeah. He's got his wife with him, he's got his kids with him, and he's going to leap off this hill. So, the conditions were great, but we advised him, don't do it. Whatever you do, don't do it. You'll kill yourself in front of your family. Fortunately, he listened to the advice and didn't do it. And I think he actually signed up for lessons. So.
It is one of those, I suppose it's one of those air sports that looks the easiest, doesn't it? For an outsider who doesn't know anything about flying, they can look at it, look how genteel it looks, look how beautiful and relaxed it looks, and it can give them a false sense of, oh, this is easy. All I've got to do is fly into wind, push the bar to land. It can. That's the danger, isn't it? People can find themselves in that situation.
Once you can actually do it, it isn't that difficult. It's about as difficult as driving a small car. Getting to the point of being qualified to do it and being safe to do it is more difficult than, say, paragliding. That's an easier thing to get into.
Yeah.
But so when the hang gliders come out of the school at the other end, they're generally fairly well competent,
right.
Safe. But yeah, it does maybe look easier than it is. I don't know. Once you can do it, once you've got those lessons under your belt and you're qualified, it isn't that difficult. Like I say, it's like driving a small car, really.
Yeah. The visuals are beautiful. The videos that you post, I was only meant to be having a little look, and I think I went through about 5 or 6 all the way through. It's fantastic to see.
Oh, thank you. I don't have rabbit on them. Yeah, so some of my favourite ones there. The European Championships, I was so excited. In fact, that became a bit of a theme throughout the whole thing. I was singing it, I did karaoke in the sky, and I had some really fantastic experiences on that. I've got them all, I've documented all of it, and the World Championships last year, all on the video. I've got one where I had a low save. I got down to about 150 feet, and my legs out of the harness, ready to land. And I got this little bit of a thermal, and I gradually worked it up, and I made goal. Unbelievable. Another one where I did a really stupid thing, flew right over this really nice field and landed in a patch of thistles. All sorts of stuff like that.
Are you using a GoPro for your videos?
Yeah.
With external mic? Have you got an external mic? Or?
No, have I got it here? Hang on, I've got it here.
Because the audio is pretty good.
So, this is my GoPro.
Yeah.
It's a standard GoPro Hero 5, but the mount that I have it in, I'll show you. I've bought a muffler that goes on the mount. This is foam.
Yes.
That just goes over the GoPro itself, and it muffles the wind noise. So I'm just talking to that, and I have it about that far from my face. I'm just talking to it while I'm flying.
Yeah.
And it picks it up really well. I have tried lots of different things. I've tried an external mic, and I've tried then syncing the sound afterwards. And the quality of sound that I've got is never as good. Everything I've tried has not been as good as just talking to the GoPro.
It works perfectly. Do you use any radio in a flight or competition? Are you in comms with anybody else?
Yeah, certainly in competition. For example, the World and European Championships, we're in competition with our other teammates. contact with our other teammates on the radio, because we'll give each other tips. Whoever's in the lead might say, well, there's a really good thermal next to that mountain there, or don't go there because there's a load of sink, or the final glide's really important. When we get to the point where somebody's in goal, we want them to report back on what the final glide was like. Did they get sunk out a lot, meaning they've got to be higher before we do that final glide, or was it a really easy final glide, meaning we don't have to waste time getting high and can set off lower.
Yeah.
So we're in constant comms like that. It's a bit of a balancing act because it can be distracting talking a lot, especially when you're trying to listen to your radio. So we try and keep the radio chatter down to a minimum, but it is there. And also, really importantly for the competitions is the safety factor, and we can relay safety information over the radio as well.
What's been your outstanding competition in your mind, which is the one that you always think back on as being the most enjoyable, giving you the biggest smiles?
Well, there's two really, the European Championships and the World Championships, for loads of reasons. The Europeans are just really excited. I mean, I performed really poorly, but I absolutely loved it. The whole thing, you're flying with 120 other competitors, all competing for those thermals and flying in the same air, and the atmosphere, it was just fantastic. Same with the World Championships last year. What made that really special was the scenery. We were flying a place called Meduno in Italy, in the Alps, and it's near the border between Italy, Austria and Slovenia. And the organisers were absolutely fantastic, and they set tasks that took us to the scenery. So one day we took off from Italy, we flew into Slovenia. I popped up over this mountain, and this monster thermal just whooshed up on the top of the mountain, and on the other side of it there's a huge glacier. And I was like, my God, I'm flying along this glacier. And at that point, I'd broken my GoPro mount and snapped it's plastic, and I'm holding it in my hand trying to film this glacier. I think that was Tolmin, that was called. And then another day, they had us taken off from Italy, and we flew into Austria, and we set a monster task of 202 kilometres, which the scenery, again, was absolutely out of this world. It's just stunning. So I think the World Championships last year was probably my best competition. It was just amazing.
When you were first learning, was there any part of the process that you struggled with? Was there any bit you got stuck on?
I think I was quite lucky, really. I sailed through it fairly quickly. I did a few lessons, I think in '97. I only had like 1 or 2 lessons. Then I came back to it in 1998, and I passed my certificate within about 3 or 4 months.
Yeah.
But the key point that I would say, if anybody who wants to learn, absolutely key point is you've got to commit to it.
Yeah.
And dedicate as much time to it as you can. And if the weather is right, go and do it. And take your lessons when you can. There's different ways of doing it. So I learned where I had ad hoc lessons. You could go on a course somewhere and do a 2-week intensive course if you went somewhere where the weather was great. But if you're doing that where you're having the ad hoc lessons, you need to really commit and give as much time as you can to it. Because the more lessons you have closer together, the quicker you're going to progress and get your certificate. There are people who have lessons, they'll have a couple of lessons and then we'll have a layoff for a long while and a few more, and they can be going at it for years because they're not committing. You need to actually commit and say, right, I'm going to do this.
Yes.
Well, then once you've got the qualification, it gets so much easier. What seemed really hard at first becomes so much easier. The other thing that I struggled with, and probably everyone struggles with, is cross country. Because when you leave that hill and you are flying, you've got, instead of having the safety of the hill and knowing you're always going to have a lift there, you're suddenly into the unknown. You don't know where your next lift's going to be. And certainly when you're flying over the flatlands, to me, it always has, and it still does feel like magic. Every time I get a thermal, I start going up. I can't believe it. I'm like, how is this happening? it just does feel like magic. But that's an art form, really, finding those thermals and getting up. And
you start to recognise different parts of terrain, different fields giving different lift.
Yeah, I mean, the key thing when you're high up is using the clouds.
Yes.
the terrain almost becomes, I'm not looking at the terrain, I'm looking at the clouds. I'm going for that cloud over there or that cloud over there. When you're using the terrain, you know that you're getting lower.
Yes.
And you're thinking, right, that field there. And so many times I have been saved by farmers ploughing the fields.
Right.
There's a farmer ploughing his field and I'm getting low. I'm going over that field. And that when you read all the books and they talk about this, and it really works.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And the getting yourself from a takeoff and landing position into the prone position, is that quite easy to get yourself doing? Does that take a bit of practice?
No, it's dead easy. I mean, it's part of the lessons as well. So when you learn, when you first learn, you'll be taking off upright, and you'll hold on to the uprights, and you're flying in the gorilla position, I think they call it. You're flying like that, landing like that. And as you get more experience, you'll basically lay down, and I don't even think about it now. I've got my hands on, I'm running, I'm taking off, and then I just lower myself down and lay down and hold on to the base part. It can be more difficult for people who are beginners when they transfer from a different sort of harness. So my harness has got a slider on the back, and the hang point slides. Right. When I'm in the upper position, it's up here. When I bring myself down, it slides back. And for some people, when they first start using a slider harness, it can feel strange. And when they get upright, they don't feel that the legs are fully forward. So it's just a bit uncomfortable. The slider harnesses themselves are generally more comfortable for spending long times in the air, and certainly more aerodynamic.
So where's your favourite hills in the UK right now?
Oh, well, my favourite hill has to be the Long Mynd. It's a really long hill near Bishop's Castle, further south. But it's got really good cross-country potential from there. It's dead easy takeoff. It's dead easy landing. We have our competitions there, and I've managed to do my longest cross-country from that hill. So that's got to be my favourite. I flew 202 kilometres from there. Wow. I was trying to do 100 miles, and I set my goal at 100 miles. And when I got to 100 miles, I was 3,000 feet up, so I thought, I'm still going, keep going. And eventually I landed towards Cambridge in that direction.
How long were you in flight for?
7 hours.
How long?
7 hours.
7 hours.
Yeah, it was. I was soaring the hill for an hour before I left it, and I wasn't going for speed. I didn't expect to get so far, so I was just being careful. And yeah, 7 hours. And when I landed, I was absolutely starving, hungry.
Yeah.
and dehydrated as well. I'd taken 4 litres of water with me, and I'd drunk all of it while I was in the air, but I was really, really thirsty. So 7 hours is a long time to be in there, to be fair.
How do you carry the water? Have you got a camelback, or have you got bottles? Or?
I have a camelback, and it goes in my harness, just on my back here, and I have a tube just coming over here. So when I want a drink, I just put it in my mouth and have a drink out of it. So quite often I'll put like a sweet drink in it, and sometimes on the competition flights can sometimes be 3, 4, or even 5 hours long, depending on the length of the task. And I usually put like a sweet drink in it now, and it's like a little reward every now and again. Just reward yourself.
Brilliant. Great chat. So when are you going to be next out, Darren? When are you next flying?
Well, I'm off work at the moment because it's I took leave for the European Championships, so it's raining outside right now, but as soon as that rain stops and the wind dies down a little bit, I'll be out flying, so hopefully next week.
Where's your local field? Where would you go to?
I fly in Derbyshire. So the Hope Valley in Derbyshire has got a number of hills that face different directions.
Right.
Depending on the wind direction, within 20 minutes you can be on any one of these hills. So it's absolutely a brilliant place to fly, and the scenery there is just amazing. And really good cross-country potential, so that's where I do most of my flying.
Brilliant. Well, Darren, listen, enjoy your next flight as soon as the rain stops. And thanks for the chat. It's been great to find out all about hang gliding and catch up with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Regan. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.